No one expected much when the next contestant's name was called. The stage lights dimmed slightly, and a slim teenage boy walked out with careful steps, his shoulders tight, his hands trembling just enough for the cameras to catch it. His name was Miguel Santos, 17 years old, from Cebu, Philippines. He wore a simple jacket, nothing flashy, no attempt to look like a star. In fact, he looked like someone who still wasn't sure if he belonged there at all. The audience applauded politely, but it was the kind of applause that comes before something ordinary, not before history is made. Simon Cowell glanced at the card in front of him and raised an eyebrow. "So, Miguel," he said, his voice calm but curious, "you've traveled a long way. Why did you come here?" Miguel swallowed hard before answering. He explained that he grew up in a small neighborhood near the coast of Cebu, where music played from old radios and battered speakers. His grandfather loved Elvis Presley. Every Sunday morning, the house would fill with crackling recordings of Hound Dog, Can't Help Falling in Love, and Suspicious Minds. Miguel didn't understand English back then, but he understood the feeling. He said Elvis sounded like freedom, like heartbreak, like hope all at once. The judges smiled politely, but Simon's face stayed unreadable. He had heard many stories like this before. Dreams fueled by family, old records, and love for music were common on this stage. What wasn't common was what happened next. When asked what song he would sing, Miguel hesitated. He looked out at the massive audience, then up at the judges. Finally, he said he would sing an Elvis classic. A few people in the crowd murmured. Singing Elvis on a show like this was dangerous. Too many had tried and failed, sounding like weak imitations or karaoke versions. Simon leaned back, almost as if preparing himself for disappointment. The music began softly. The first few notes drifted across the theater, and Miguel closed his eyes. When he sang the first line, the reaction was instant. Gasps rippled through the audience. His voice wasn't just similar to Elvis. It carried the same warmth, the same smooth depth, and yet something new. It wasn't an impersonation. It was as if Elvis's spirit had found a new voice, shaped by a Filipino soul and a teenager's raw emotion. Simon's head snapped up. Heidi Klum's mouth fell open. Howie Mandel whispered something under his breath, eyes wide. The audience started applauding in the middle of the verse, unable to stop themselves. Miguel's nerves melted away as he felt the energy shift. His voice grew stronger, richer, filling every corner of the theater. He moved naturally, not copying Elvis's movements but letting the music guide him. Every note landed perfectly, not because it was rehearsed to perfection, but because it was felt deeply. Then came the first twist. Halfway through the song, the music suddenly stopped. The band fell silent. For a split second, panic flashed across Miguel's face. The audience grew quiet, confused. This was the kind of moment that destroyed auditions. Simon frowned, thinking it was a technical error. But instead of freezing, Miguel did something no one expected. He kept singing, a cappella, his voice raw and unfiltered. Without instruments, without backing, his voice somehow sounded even more powerful. You could hear the slight tremble, the breath between phrases, the honesty in every note. The audience leaned forward, hanging onto every sound. When the music finally returned, louder and fuller than before, the crowd erupted. People stood up, clapping, shouting, some even wiping tears from their eyes. As the final note rang out, there was a brief moment of silence. Then the entire theater exploded. A full standing ovation shook the room. Miguel stood frozen, eyes wide, hands shaking again, but this time from disbelief. He bowed his head, overwhelmed. Simon Cowell stood up slowly. This alone was rare enough to make headlines. He walked closer to the edge of the judges' table and looked directly at Miguel. He didn't smile at first. Instead, he paused, letting the tension stretch. Finally, he spoke. He said he had heard thousands of singers try to sing Elvis, and most of them failed miserably. Then he said something no one expected. He said this was one of the few times he felt that Elvis himself would actually be proud. The crowd roared louder than before. Miguel covered his mouth, tears streaming down his face. Heidi told him his voice was magical and timeless. Howie said he forgot he was judging a competition and felt like he was watching a once-in-a-generation moment. Sophia said Miguel didn't just sing a song, he told a story that crossed cultures and generations. But the night wasn't done surprising everyone. Simon leaned forward again and asked Miguel why his voice carried so much emotion. Miguel took a deep breath and explained something he hadn't planned to say. Just months before the audition, his grandfather had passed away. The man who introduced him to Elvis never got to see him perform on this stage. Miguel said he sang that song for him. The audience went silent, and then applause returned, softer, filled with respect. Backstage footage later revealed another twist. Producers admitted they almost didn't let Miguel audition. His initial application video was filmed on an old phone with poor audio. Some staff thought his voice was edited or too good to be real. It took one producer insisting on giving him a chance that brought him to the stage. That decision changed everything. As the episode aired across America, social media exploded. Clips of Miguel's performance spread rapidly. People commented that they had chills, that they hadn't felt this way about a singer in years. Many said they didn't care who won the season anymore, this performance alone was enough. Elvis fans, some of them lifelong, admitted they were skeptical at first but ended up emotional and amazed. In Cebu, neighbors gathered around small screens, cheering and crying together. Streets echoed with pride. Local radio stations replayed the clip over and over. For many young Filipinos, Miguel became a symbol of possibility. A reminder that talent from small places could reach the biggest stages in the world. The next round brought more pressure. Critics wondered if Miguel was a one-song wonder. Could he deliver again without relying on the magic of Elvis? This doubt followed him into rehearsals. He struggled with his voice one night, cracking under stress. For a moment, he considered quitting, afraid he would ruin the memory of that perfect audition. Another twist came when Simon personally requested Miguel to try a different genre for the next performance. Not Elvis. Not even classic rock. Simon wanted to see who Miguel really was beyond the legend. The request terrified him. Elvis was his comfort zone, his connection to his grandfather. Stepping away felt like betrayal. On the night of the performance, Miguel walked out again, this time visibly nervous. He explained briefly that he would sing a modern song, rearranged in his own style. The music began, and slowly, his voice unfolded in a new way. It still carried echoes of Elvis, but it also revealed Miguel's own identity. The judges watched closely, and when he finished, Simon smiled, genuinely this time. He said this proved Miguel wasn't living in Elvis's shadow. He was building something new from it. By the time the live shows arrived, Miguel had become a fan favorite. Viewers voted in massive numbers. Each performance showed growth, confidence, and deeper emotion. One night, he dedicated a song to immigrant families chasing dreams far from home. Another night, he sang in a mix of English and Filipino, honoring his roots. Each time, the response was overwhelming. The season finale approached, and the pressure reached its peak. Miguel stood among performers with elaborate acts, dancers, and high-tech visuals. He had only a microphone, a spotlight, and his voice. Simon asked him backstage if he was scared. Miguel smiled and said he used to sing into a broken mirror in his grandfather's house, imagining a crowd that didn't exist. Compared to that, this felt like a dream he was ready to live. His final performance brought the house down. It wasn't about winning anymore. It was about connection. When the votes were announced, Miguel didn't win first place. The crowd gasped, but then something beautiful happened. The applause didn't stop. It grew louder, longer, filled with love. Simon stood and clapped again, nodding with respect. In interviews afterward, Simon said Miguel didn't need a trophy. He had something more valuable. He had a voice that moved people in a story that would be remembered long after the season ended. Today, Miguel's journey continues. He records music, performs internationally, and always carries a small photo of his grandfather with him. He says every time he sings, he feels that Sunday morning in Cebu, the sound of an old radio, and the belief that dreams, no matter how far they travel, never forget where they began.